Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have a special guest on, Stefan Kremser, aka Spacehoon. Stefan, thank you for joining us again today.
Yeah, hello.
So, whenever we do these Friday news live streams where we go through all the InfoSec news, we like to have the best news experts on. So, Stefan's here to provide in-depth commentary on every single one of these news stories, since I'm sure he's an expert.
I am absolutely prepared and I know everything about every news story you're going to show me.
Yes, in addition to this, we may also be doing a little teaser of a new feature for those of you who use some of Stefan's products. So if you haven't heard, Stefan makes the Wi-Fi deauthor, which runs on ESP8266 boards, like this little one right here, or one of the custom ones he sells on spacehoon.store, or in America, hack.gay. Now, these boards are really cool because they can do all sorts of stuff, but they do require an interface. And previously, the best way to connect one of these to your computer and get started hacking was either using the Hunitor, which was a Rust serial monitor program, or you could use the web interface in the older version, the v2.5, even though we're now on version 3.0 for all kind of the cool bleeding edge features. So, Stefan, do you want to do it at the end or at the beginning? How do you feel like?
Yeah, no, let's do it. Let's do it at the end.
Okay.
That was enough teasing already. I think you gave away maybe a bit too much already.
Well, all right, all right. Well, I haven't even said what it is yet. I've just said what the current way of getting in touch.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, okay.
So I'm pretty excited about this, obviously, because Stefan and I have been talking for a long time about how we can make all these things better, especially for beginners and those of you who maybe haven't worked with connecting a serial device before. We've done a bunch of workshops also where some people have struggled to be able to connect, and I think that this is a really cool direction. So towards the end of the stream, perhaps we'll give you guys a little demonstration or maybe just show you what the future of cheap, low-cost microcontroller Wi-Fi hacking looks like. All right, so
Yeah, you gotta stick till the end.
yeah, exactly. To see the secret announcement.
You cannot skip.
Yeah, you cannot
It's the-
skip. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into the news for today. And we're actually going to go back a little bit because we haven't done the Friday live stream in a while, and it's been a while since we've been able to touch on some of these topics. Now, the spookiest one that I wanted to mention, if you hadn't seen this, was a paper that was talking about CPUs at scale. So when you have like giant data centers or other things that rely on tons and tons of CPUs, all in servers or something like that, some really weird stuff that can happen to them when there are that many all operating in a network. So, Stefan, if you hadn't seen this, what the kind of breakdown of this is you can get cores that get undetectable failures, which are just basically causing it to do wrong calculations. And these wrong calculations can propagate to other systems and cause huge problems that are really difficult to diagnose. So a lot of the time, if there's a failure, people will assume that it's like code or it's something else that might have I don't know, a more simple explanation than a processor that has silently failed. But it has been proven that these are called, I think, how's it pronounced, like mercurial cores. This means that they'll have a number of different things that can happen to them that make it so all of a sudden they just provide a wrong answer that seems to pass certain checks and can cause all sorts of other systemic problems, or they can also do things that only work on that core and provide complete gibberish in other instances. And one example was encryption. There was an example where one core was able to encrypt and decrypt something normally on itself, but as soon as that code was put out to another processor, it failed and produced gibberish. So when it comes to encrypting things or decrypting things or some of these other critical calculations, having cores which over time start to fail in ways that aren't detected and just basically can poison a system with wrong answers is a real interesting security problem that it's not that it hasn't existed before. It's just that there haven't been that many businesses that rely on these huge data centers. And now that so many people do, it's really becoming an issue that there are ways that these cores can fail that are relatively difficult to detect and really confuse people when it happens. So it's kind of assumed that like processors will either count correctly or fail. But in some cases, there's there's this weird in-between state that's interesting to know about because it means that these will behave unpredictably and can be incredibly difficult to trace down. So if you've ever thought that your code was messing up, then maybe it's just a core that's failed somewhere.
Wow, that's crazy. And yeah, I mean, if that's happening in processes where you encrypt or decrypt stuff, ugh, that's nasty.
Yeah, especially because sometimes it'll work on the core and sometimes it won't work, and there's no way to predict how it will happen. And also, it gets worse over time.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it fails in like once every 1,000 calculations, you're gonna have a hard time finding the issue. But once every 1,000 times is still a lot.
Yeah, and it is intermittent. So they were saying that these sorts of failures will happen sometimes just randomly, and that randomness will, it'll increase in frequency, but it'll still be totally random as to when it's actually going to happen. So it's very frustrating for people that are trying to track this sort of thing down because, again, the culprit can just be a core that's really important to something that's somewhere in the data center that is producing incorrect results or just intermittent failures. So really weird, very spooky, and kind of makes me feel better about my code sometimes if I can just blame it on a core that's failed somewhere. So, all right, one thing that journalists tend to do is they use Twitter trends as a metric for what kind of conversation is taking place in a local area. But there has been some research in showing that at least in certain areas like in Turkey, these trends can be almost entirely manipulated. And this has become automated to the point that trends are no longer, at least on Twitter, no longer a good indication of what's actually going on. So it's showing that almost half of local Twitter trends in Turkey are fake, which are created by bots, and generally there's a process to get these up to the top of people's news feeds and make it look like this is an organic conversation that's happening in the country. So people tend to see this at the very top of their Twitter feed. It's suggested to them, and news media will report on this, thinking that it's a real thing that's happening in the country or an organic thing that people are discussing, when in fact, this is just something that anybody with access to bots and compromised accounts can do. So if you're using Twitter trends to try to understand what's going on in other countries, or even the country you're in, that actually might not be an accurate metric because it doesn't seem like there's very many good defenses against this sort of manipulation, against this metric that a lot of people take very seriously.
Yeah, I think we had a similar case in Germany recently. And also what you have to keep in mind is often these stuff that are in the trends can be caused by a very small group of people that just, I don't know, if the topic is controversial enough and they have some bots to help, it will spread organically too at some point, but it's always, it's not a clear, like, this is only bot or this is only organic. It's always a mix. And sometimes it's hard because, you don't know how big the group of people actually is that is interested or is of that opinion that is spreading. So it can mislead you very
easily. So one thing I always like to bring this up whenever we're talking about bots on Twitter. Bot Sentinel is a really cool project that basically tracks compromised or compromised accounts or accounts that are spreading information kind of all in unison as part of organized campaigns. So you can see alerts from the kinds of things that are trending. Some of them are a little silly because D-Law is always trending because that's like just a part of a sentence in Spanish. So that's funny. But some of these things like trending topics allow you to see what hashtags or what two-word phrases bot networks are actually spreading. So if you want to see trends that known bot accounts are starting to push, then this can give you some insight into manipulated trends on Twitter and what sorts of things people are trying to push in an organized fashion using these compromised accounts. So the number one we can see is Game Team, whatever that is. If you want to do the search or if you want to look at the tweets, this allows you to break down the data and kind of see a bit more about this trend and what it's being used for, what kind of topics it's being used to push. So sometimes bots will just jump on trending things that are already out there, and sometimes they'll try to start their own trends. But it's really good to see also maybe what URLs are being spread by, you can see these ones are shortened, and I don't well, it's because it's a Twitter link, but you can visit and see like what website it's sending people to. It's just an interesting way of seeing what sorts of automated things are being propagated. And a lot of these are for profit. A lot of them are not attacks. They're literally just, companies that are finding ways of boosting their stuff and maybe using some sketchy means to do so. So it's interesting to see this kind of manipulation in the wild. And Bot Sentinel is one of my favorite projects for keeping an eye on this. So if you're curious about this sort of manipulation, then I recommend Bot Sentinel as a way of maybe doing some of your own research into how this stuff works. All right, so let's move on to the next one. In the United States, we've always had the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which is something that is very broadly interpreted and in a lot of cases is not very often successfully challenged. So one case was, I think it was a retired or a part-time police sergeant was paid by someone who was, totally outside the scope of his police business to run a search on a department database. So they accessed a law enforcement database, which he had lawful access to, but he did it against department policy. So they charged him under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which comes with very, very serious consequences and is a pretty serious crime. Stefan, I'm curious, in Germany, if somebody accessed their work network for something they weren't supposed to, would they be fired or arrested and charged with hacking?
What the heck?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if you can fire someone for that in Germany. But no, they would not be pressed charges upon that. That's ridiculous.
So this guy was a former police sergeant. He ran a license plate search on a law enforcement computer database in exchange for money. That's the core of this. And basically what the Supreme Court ruling showed was that misusing your lawful access to a system is not the same as unlawful access to that system. If you've been given credentials or access to that system and you abuse it to do something that's against the policy or against the access rights you were given, then that is a matter between you and the person that provided you access, not like a criminal hacking case. So this is really good news for people who might be charged under this for something that really doesn't affect or really doesn't merit like a charge of like hacking into a computer that you've literally been given access to when you're just doing something you were told not to do on it, or you're bending or even breaking the rules in this case. I think that this is a really good ruling that narrows the scope of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, because a lot of pen testers and a lot of people kind of have to worry about this in their daily jobs, because if somebody were to get either the wrong idea about what they were doing or just want to go after them in a malicious way, a lot of the things that they do, in the course of their work could be potentially charged under this interpretation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So, very good news for people who do cybersecurity and people that do pen testing. Because this has always been a very, very broad law in the United States that comes with very severe consequences. That's been used in cases where, this is just interpreted very, very broadly, and it's difficult to know how it's going to be used when there haven't been precedents set for what is and isn't allowed. So another good precedent that kind of narrows the scope of this. So breathe a sigh of relief if you've ever been worried that your boss might get mad at you and use something you did in an authorized pen test as a way to get you arrested, I guess, because that actually was something that could potentially have happened prior to this ruling. All right.
Yeah, and I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
as soon as you hear about people being charged like that, you're just like, dang, sucks to that guy, but wait, could that be me?
Yeah.
So another just piece of news, if it seems like there's been a lot of ransomware attacks lately, it's because there have been. They have definitely been picking up in pace, and a lot of this is because there are people who can just buy access to this ransomware infrastructure and then attack people and get money with very little technical expertise or knowledge. And that means that these tools are falling into the hands of people who have a lot of time on their hands and are trying to make money from these sorts of attacks. And some of these exploits that they're using to be able to get into these organizations are mostly automated, which means that they don't really need to be that sophisticated in order to attack some of these organizations, although several of them are fairly sophisticated. But really, it's about getting the most bang for your buck here. So if there's software out there that I guess, malware out there that has the business model of someone writes it and then delivers it to a marketplace of criminals who will use it to extort people, and then the original authors just get some percentage of the extortion. That's a pretty sweet deal for the malware authors, and this sort of business model has been increasing the amount of ransomware attacks that people have been seeing on companies and other organizations. So we've seen at least some guidance from the White House explaining some of the critical things that need to happen. Conversations that people need to have with their security teams, and plans that people need to make in order to have at least some of the most basic things covered. Because what these attacks have shown is that some of these companies have been incredibly easy targets because they haven't even taken the time to do a couple of the basic things you really should do in order to make sure you're prepared for one of these breaches. At the very least, having backups that are not networked, that are secure and can be restored from, as an alternative to an extremely expensive ransom. Although the problem is also, it seems like people are paying the ransom. So that probably is not going to make the ransomware slow down anytime soon. So it's good to see some government guidance to companies explaining what the absolute minimum should be for cybersecurity teams to have conversations and plans about these sorts of things happening to their company, and just not assuming that it could never happen to them, because that is kind of the problem with some of these other companies, is they just assumed it wouldn't happen to them, and eventually it does. So yeah, Stefan, anything to mention on that?
Not sure. I mean, you basically went for all the key points.
Yeah, again, just some guidance for companies, but it's still good to see.
Ransomware sucks. I mean, that's the whole point.
It does. So we have some more activity on the ongoing project that we've been working on, showing how it's possible to abuse privacy with AirTags. Now, there have been some people that have hacked AirTags and flashed custom stuff to them, but we just decided to put an AirTag in my luggage and see how long it takes before I actually discover it. And what I found was it makes a little chime 3 days after I started being tracked. And in that time, I was able to locate where I was working, which airports I was going through, which gate I was leaving from, the exact moment my flight took off, and even my home address. Now, obviously, that's a lot of information, and the only real way that I'm being notified here is through a tiny little speaker. So I feel like, honestly, if someone just busted out that speaker, you would have eliminated the only warning that you would get from this sort of device. And unless you have an iPhone, there's no real way you're going to get a notification. And in our house, nobody in our house has an iPhone. So I've gotten exactly no notifications that there's a little locator beacon in my house. The only thing it does is it occasionally makes a little noise if I pick it up. But if I were to have somehow muted that speaker, or otherwise hidden it in a place that isn't easy to hear that noise, like maybe somewhere under a car or something like that, then this would be a pretty effective and pretty creepy tracker for a very low cost that's super persistent. It'll last for a really long time and seems to be really easy to track, because even though we don't have any iPhones in our house, some DoorDash person did have an iPhone, and that was enough to locate it at our specific address after a couple days. So yeah, these are really creepy. So it looks like now it's cutting the window for its stalking alerts from 3 days to 24 hours. But that doesn't really help me, again, because I'm an Android user. So yeah, this is just funny, because there's some other things going on with this that just make it kind of a sketchy idea, I feel like, in some cases. But I guess we'll see. I mean, I feel like for things like a tile, you need to be running the app in order for somebody to be sniffing for it. This is every iPhone is looking for this device, which really makes it a pretty sophisticated sensor net. It creeps me out, honestly, that these are so easy to plant and so easy to connect back to and watch. Yeah. Again, if you just disable the speaker, there really wouldn't be anything here to let anybody know that something was wrong. So yeah, I think this is a creepy little product. That's pretty much all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I'm curious how the Android app will look that Apple announced now.
It's
How
it's
that's gonna help.
it seems like either you can be part of this big sensor network, or you can have no idea that it's stalking you. And those are your two options.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a Twitter mention from Naomi Wu the other day, and a lot of people commented because, yeah, cases are increasing of people that use those tags or tiles to stalk women, I guess.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't have a good solution. Like we can't really build a deoffer for it. It doesn't really work with Bluetooth. I mean, deoffing is a Wi-Fi thing, but I'm not aware of anything similar to that. And the way these work is beacons anyway. So it's not like there's really a connection. They just send pings out. And we can't really keep them from doing that unless we jam the frequency. But that's like a whole different set of problems if you do that. So
Well,
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
tricky.
there's definitely some problems like frequency hopping that Bluetooth does that makes it impractical to try to jam like a Bluetooth device the way that we do Wi-Fi. It's just more difficult to do. Although it might be upon looking at the actual process that the iPhone uses to identify and report back on a discovered tag, it might be interesting to see if there's a way to use some of the open source protocols that have been developed to emulate an AirTag, which you can currently use a Raspberry Pi to emulate an AirTag, which is really cool. Maybe there could be a way to emulate like so many AirTags the way that we do with the beacon spammer or something like that to make it so it's either buried in a bunch of data that is confusing or the iPhone discards it as one of many different emulated or fake AirTags in an area just to like reduce the amount of clutter. I'm just thinking maybe there's a threshold you can push it over that makes it think that it's a fake AirTag or something else that would make it so that you could deny a certain area from being able to legitimately read them. I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. I'm not sure if that would work. I'm not sure if something like that is implemented, but yeah, I guess we have to try out.
Yeah, I mean, another one might be like finding out the way that the AirTags communicate. It says that it's encrypted. So if it's just sending out an encrypted beacon, then that sucks because there's not that much you can do about it. Like if it's just sending out the equivalent of a MAC address and signal strength, then like that's not a handshake per se. It's just a one-way communication. So at that point, you're just trying to like disable the receiver from being able to process it effectively. But that's pretty hard because if it's actually like doing some sort of handshake or some sort of authentication with the beacon, then at least you could block one side of it maybe or interfere with it. But I guess it's going to take a little bit more research to figure out if there's a way of effectively denying a certain area from allowing these Bluetooth beacons to be received because it's creepy. It's creepy.
Yep.
All right, so we had this tweet has been this tweet has been deleted, but we had a representative of our government. In fact, I will unredact this 1 second. Representative Mo Brooks, who is, I believe, on our House cybersecurity committee or something like that. He's on some sort of cybersecurity group. He posted his password on Twitter, just out.
Why?
So he got angry at someone who had like sent him something that he didn't like. So he decided to tweet a picture of him taking a picture of his screen. So I guess he decided taking a screenshot was too slow. So he whips out his phone, takes a picture of the monitor, and to the monitor is taped his credentials, which by the way are like a set of birthdays for like significant. Yeah, so like people went through and were like trying to figure out like what the passwords meant, and they're just like, oh yeah, so it's the naming convention. So the password was Momar5456, which was Morris Jackson Brooks Jr. date of birth April. It was just his it was just like his son's birthday and then his wife's birthday. So
wow.
Yeah, so like I mean this is all he's the House Armed Services subcommittee member on cyber innovative technologies and information systems. Right. Dang. So I mean, we all make mistakes, but this is just one of those ones where he left it up for over 12 hours before he took it down.
Why? Has no one told him
about screenshots?
No, I mean the to delete it.
Or,
Didn't
like-
he know how to delete
or,
it?
like-
I mean, obviously Twitter told him.
He was just like, wow, this post
do
is really
something.
popular. People really catching my vibe on this one. They know what I mean. And then it's just like he just exposed like the credentials for his like government account.
wow.
Oh boy. So I mean, frankly, we see this sort of thing all the time. There was, I think somebody was like proudly holding up like the TSA key at some point in a photo, and the photo was high enough resolution for people to 3D print the key. So now everybody has a TSA. It's just like, you know, like these things happen all the time because people don't think about what they're taking pictures of. But yeah, this was just a bad one, a particularly bad one. That kind of rose to the top of the Twitter feed. But hey, at least he deleted it eventually. But again, it was up for at least 12 hours. And password, I mean, it's got some upper lowercase. It's not the worst password I've ever seen. It could be better. Try not to use like dates of significant others, I would say. But you know, what are you gonna do? Hey, so Stefan, it's Pride Month. Do you have any appropriate chickens to maybe kick off Pride Month with?
I have.
That's great
Although
to hear.
how do I show them to you?
I don't know. Just make them
I don't
huge on
know.
your screen, I guess. But yeah, so one thing that I like to give links to good resources, and this one was security tips for online LGBTQ plus dating. The EFF always has really great guides for cybersecurity and keeping yourself safe and private, and I think this is a great one for anyone who's dating online. So if you're looking for a good guide on this, then definitely check out the security tips for online dating. It's a really good resource, and again, this is something that I refresh myself on all the time because people are getting better and better at catfishing and being sketchy online. So if you want to take your own privacy and security very seriously, then go through and see if you are following some of these very, very simple suggestions, and maybe if you can do any of them better to just minimize the risk of someone being able to take advantage of some data that you left out or some identifying information you might have forgot that people can pick up on. Because, you know, technology is changing rapidly and you often forget what kinds of information you might be leaking online. Like when I found out that Omegle just gives out your like direct IP address. Like why? Why would you do that? You know, it's yeah, who knows? All right. Anyway, Stefan, you got those chickens ready?
I got the chicken ready.
Let's see
I think
it.
this one is my favorite.
There we go. Happy Pride, everyone. There we go. This is a really good chicken. I don't believe these exist as stickers yet, but just visually for morale.
No,
you know,
but they will exist as stickers soon.
good, and they will exist on my laptop then soon as well.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now that we talked about how creepy the whole AirTag thing is, what if every iPhone was actually an AirTag? Would you like that?
Isn't that already the case?
No, because when you turn an iPhone off, it's no longer, you know, it's no longer sending out signals.
Ah.
What if every iPhone, instead of turning off, was just like, I'll turn off most of the way, but instead I will also be a Bluetooth beacon that operates exactly like an iTag.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that. Does the user have the option to disable it?
Yes, you can change this Find My Network functionality by going to Find My in Settings, but it looks like it's opt out. So this will just become a feature,
yeah.
which means that when the phone is in very low power mode, it'll switch over to just like barely turning on a Bluetooth interface long enough to send out a beacon and hopefully help other nearby devices find your device. This is kind of funny because we had our friend Alex Lynn come on and show off a device he was using to basically be able to locate devices or smartphones that are lost. I believe the original use case was somebody lost their smartphone on like a trail or something, and they wanted to be able to track it back down by looking for the MAC address. This is kind of like the Bluetooth version of that, but much more deliberate on the manufacturer's part, where they want to make it so the battery can, you know, shut itself down, but then maintain a Bluetooth beacon, and some hope that somebody walking by with an iPhone would give you an idea of where this device ended up. I mean, that greatly expands the duration of time that you can find a lost item if they do implement this. So, I mean, objectively, as a way of finding my lost stuff, like, do I think it's an interesting idea? Yeah, no, if I want to turn my phone into a low power Bluetooth locator beacon, like when I lose it, like that sounds like the state it should be in, frankly, because like, like I don't want it to be accessible for somebody who might go through it or try to reset it or whatever. If it was just operating in a locator mode and anybody with an iPhone or an Android phone, I guess in the future, running this locator app would be able to tell me where it was, like that would be pretty useful. But it also means that like any device turned off effectively could turn into one of these AirTags. And, how do you implement anti-stalking stuff then? Like, how long does the battery last for? There's lots of other questions here where, if you're looking for an AirTag, that's great. But if you're looking for like a very, very low powered down, like iPhone that's just beaconing out the location that it's traveling with, then that could be an issue because maybe it doesn't even have enough battery to be able to like send any sort of notification. I don't know. It just seems like there might still be issues there with people using it to stalk another person. But interesting to know what kind of features are coming around the bend. And knowing that your phone could just convert itself into a low power Bluetooth locator beacon is an interesting thing to know.
Yeah, it's a bit, yeah, you have kind of pro and cons here. I'm not sure where this is going. Because on one side, I mean, this could enable things, the whole Bluetooth beacon technology. I mean, this could enable things we don't even think about yet. We have no idea, And I mean, the feature they are describing is really useful.
Yeah.
Though, yeah, it comes with these stalker problems as well. And will people know how to turn it off and what to do about it? That's gonna be difficult because like no one tells them. And if it's opted in enabled by default and they have to opt out manually, no one will,
Yeah, because it's convenient, So like, if there's any privacy problems with this, then it's very likely that most people will only find out when they're directly exposed to it. All right, so next up, did you hear that the FBI managed to recover funds from the ransomware victims, including Colonial Pipeline, it looks like?
Oh.
Yeah, so...
How?
Oh, wait till I tell you. So it turns out that the ransomware guys were not doing like very much like tumbling or like any sort of obfuscation of the ransom that they received. They just got it at like a Bitcoin address and then like moved it around in ways that didn't really like hide any of it. And I guess just had it in a Coinbase wallet. So the FBI just went ahead and got in their car, drove,
Wow.
let's see, how far did they have to drive? Oh, like about 1.7 miles to the Coinbase office in San Francisco. They went past the 7-Eleven. They found some good parking right here. They walked in and they were like, hey, give us that wallet. And Coinbase was like, well, dang, you're the FBI. Here it is. And that's the conclusion of this open source investigation of how the FBI got the money back. Apparently, they barely managed to hide it, and then they let the FBI just basically go in and take it because there was no attempt to hide it whatsoever. So.
This is funny. I was just talking with a friend the other day about how this is kind of a misconception with cryptocurrency that it's like private in any way.
Yeah.
Like if you know the wallet, you can track it. You can track everything. I mean, that's kind of the point. So to ensure there's no fake money or transactions that shouldn't be there. But that means that if you have something like ransomware and you get paid out, it's not easy to just turn it into real money or real things without being traceable. Because at the moment you give that to a bank like Coinbase has your address or at least some information about you.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy a product online with it, that shop has your address, So you have to be very creative and wash the money essentially. And it seems like they did a very bad job doing that.
Yeah, and there's some features that like add some privacy. Like I know that when I was doing a cryptocurrency investigation, I learned that Coinbase wallets will generate a new Bitcoin wallet address for each transaction if you want them to. So that makes it more difficult to see like repeated transactions to the same wallet address. Like if you're just analyzing it the way that most people would analyze cryptocurrency transactions. So like you get some benefits for like going with a company that like tries to like set up a bunch of wallet addresses for you and increase your privacy. But the problem is if anybody figures out what service you're using and they're headquartered in San Francisco, then you've got a problem again, because, you know, they have your information and they essentially have access to your money, and they can just choose to give it to someone else, which is exactly what they did. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny, yeah, because like for all the elegance of this ransomware attack, like they did not move the money in a way that was resistant to this sort of just seizure. So now the FBI has a bunch of Bitcoin, and the people that executed this attack do not. So interesting story here. Funny also because it probably could have been prevented, but alas, it was not. So poor ransomware operators, how bad I feel for them. Okay, so this was completely wild, and if you haven't read this entire story, I encourage you to, because this is some absolutely crazy stuff. So the FBI and the Australian Federal Police were running a secure messaging app for 3 years, and this was basically a competitor to some of these other like sketchy, fully encrypted applications that like cartels and organized crime and drug dealers have been using for a long time to make sure that their communications are securely encrypted. Now, it's very common that they would just buy phones that were preloaded with these applications where all their communication would go through them. And as a result, they were very, very lazy in terms of the kinds of stuff that they would send to each other. They used to communicate in code. They would be vague or like have things that would be plausibly deniable. But instead, they were just like, go kill this guy and get the cocaine, make sure that you intercept this boat. They were planning assassinations. They were doing also, there was an attack against some, I don't remember what it was against, but like an attack against like a civilian business that they intercepted because they were sitting there watching this. And apparently the idea for this entire thing happened between over a couple of beers, as I imagine a lot of Australian ideas happen, between like some FBI agents and some Australian Federal Police agents like 3 years ago. And based on that conversation, they decided to introduce a backdoored application that purported to be the kind that these people really were looking for, and managed to get a couple underworld influencers or criminal influencers to start to suggest all sorts of stuff. So, there's more to this story. I guess I've read all of my couriermail.com.au. I wonder what would happen if I accidentally enabled NoScript. I wonder what would happen. Yeah, so this is a absolutely crazy story, and goes on to just show how criminals, oh, look at that. Now I don't have to buy access to that. What a weird glitch. Dang, I hate it. Don't you hate it when that happens? Well, anyway, as you can see, they found this bald guy found this sweet machine gun in Australia, which they are definitely not supposed to have. They found our like bulletproof like vest. They found a bunch of 30-round magazines. I'm sure all that's very bad. This guy's super proud of himself. Here we go. Operation Ironside by the numbers. We got 224 people charged, $45 million cash seized, 31 threats to life thwarted, 525 charges, 72 firearms recovered, 1,650 encrypted devices signed up. So this is hilarious. There were 1,600 people or criminals using this app. 3,000 kilograms. Stefan, is that a lot of drugs? Is that a lot? Is 3,000 kilograms a lot?
3 tons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a lot. And then 3 clandestine labs dismantled. So they were able to get after some drug manufacturing too. So this was a pretty involved story, and this guy was one of the people who was spreading this backdoored application to other criminals. I don't know what he's working on, presumably farming. And then also this redacted Australian man was another one. Australia's Mafia Man. What a great moniker. Was another person who was being like, hey guys, like, don't just text each other. Use this sweet encrypted app called Anom with a 0, because that's, makes it seem cool. I guess biker gangs really like this, which was a problem for them because now dozens of members and associates have been arrested. So if you want to know how law enforcement fights criminals nowadays, it's usually by infiltrating their communications and trying to find the ways that they are spreading information or otherwise communicating with themselves. And this is a classic example of how, Australia has really been going after encryption for a long time now. They've been trying to make it so strong encryption is actually a crime to use, which to me seems really crazy because you can't outlaw math. You can try, but it's really hard. But this is kind of an example of how like the law enforcement community sees encryption as this barrier to being able to get their work done. Doesn't seem like they're really having much of a problem, does it, Stefan, with encryption?
Yeah, this is. I don't know how I feel about this because at one side I don't want the police running apps like that. But yeah, it's funny how they use this to fight the bad guys. While on the other side, politicians try to basically outlaw encryption.
Yeah.
And here, you see that it works anyway. You can fight crime very effectively. And most of the time, the most effective measures are not through, trying to break encryption or whatever, but doing these more classic approaches. Yeah.
And
although this is, I guess, a new kind of approach, but still.
Yeah, and all it took was a couple of Australians and a couple of bees.
See, it's not even that hard,
I love it.
I mean, this is a lot easier than trying to make encryption illegal or force all the telecommunication companies to, install Trojans on anyone's devices. This is all complicated, and this is easy.
Yeah, exactly. So this was probably my favorite story, like over the entire like news period we're covering. I just think like, for one, it totally undermines the the insistence that like we can't do anything about encrypted crime. Is like, well, I mean, you could get creative. There's things you could do, and then also like people talk about secure communications. There are so many different ways that you can mess this up. That's why like we never recommend like Signal as like a one-stop shop for encrypting all your privacy, because then like which keyboard are you using? If it's Gboard, that it's sending a copy of what you're typing, like that could also be in it. There's so many little nuances for the way that you secure your stuff that encryption is hard, and trying to use encrypted stuff is hard, especially if you're not technical, and that can come back to bite you. So, wow, this was really an incredible story. Again, highly recommend you check it out. If you want to, go to couriermail.com.au. Make sure to, buy a subscription, unless you're getting this weird glitch that I just got where I just got to read the story for free. Okay, so Stefan, if you could give one piece of advice to young people, what would it be? Because for me, I think it would be never travel more than 1,000 miles from anyone that you know to meet a stranger you're emotionally involved with from the internet. What about you?
This, you hit, I don't know out of my head, but this is a good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I know the backstory to this, and I don't really know what to respond now.
So to our good friend James out there, who's out there exploring the world, good luck, James. We hope to hear from you soon. All right.
Don't get lost.
Yeah, don't get lost. All right, moving on. So, Stefan, are you aware that Amazon devices are now basically sharing the internet connection of their owners with other random IoT devices? So in order to get a better reception, they basically snuck a LoRa network into their devices that allows these devices to basically share the internet connection of the person who has them with other Amazon products. So you have to opt out of this, and people are not really that happy about it. In fact, it makes it kind of difficult to even use these devices if you choose to opt out of this network. So you got the option to either share your data connection or not use these devices that are going to let other devices start using it without your permission. Yeah, do you like that?
It's just incredible to me how creative these companies get, and like how creative in being creepy they get. I mean, this is sophisticated. Okay, so if I get this right, you have, I don't know, your Amazon Alexa, and maybe you put it in a room where you have bad reception of your Wi-Fi. So in order for that Alexa to access the internet and function properly anyway, it just tunnels the internet connection through LoRa to maybe another Amazon device on the other side of the wall because the apartment next to you has one
Mhm.
also. What? So you tunnel your the Amazon device traffic through LoRa to another Amazon device that then uses that person's Wi-Fi.
Yeah, like
What? And
the
this
two things.
works? Like, isn't there like a huge delay or anything?
It's kind of
Because
interesting to me
LoRa is
that
slow.
there's two companies that are kind of doing the same thing. Amazon's like, what if all of our devices were a link back to data? And Amazon's like, what if all of our devices were part of a giant sensor net? They're basically like using your data connection or your hardware that you purchase to make their own products more useful at the expense of your data connection or no, that's it, your data connection. I mean, either way, like you're processing and sending back telemetry to Apple, on your data plan, and you're processing and sending information back to Amazon also on your data plan. So they basically just found ways to make their products network with each other and take advantage of whatever access you've given them to a data network to do stuff that isn't for you. As is the best way I can describe it. It's like a product feature they want to offer to other customers, but someone else's Amazon device connecting to your Wi-Fi network to do stuff and using your data, that's not for you.
This is, I don't know. I can see the Apple AirTag and iPhone finding thing. I can see how that works and that it's not that bad. I mean, they send very little information back and forth. But here you give your bandwidth to another person.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's not just, like an ID that gets transferred once every few minutes. Like there's a direct data link and there's real bandwidth being used. And data goes through your network. I mean, I don't know how they encrypt things and everything, but still it's just weird.
it is really weird. Yeah.
And there will be a breach at some point, and then it's all, oh no, we couldn't have seen that coming, and
Oh,
then
we forgot that
people
like
have other
Amazon
people
allows
say that.
outside devices access to our network. Oh, weird. Somehow they managed to. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, this will happen. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, so speaking of things that are alarming, the Citizen app is something we talked about last time, and guess what? It's in the news again, but this time for launching a manhunt against the wrong person. Um, this is the kind of behavior that we were kind of talking about, like becoming a problem on this sort of app, where people's data is incentivized to be reported back to a community that sometimes just doesn't really care about accuracy that much. This is the same kind of problem that like Reddit detectives get themselves into when they accuse the wrong person and potentially cause a lot of damage to someone that didn't do anything to deserve it. So yeah, these apps are creepy, and I'm not going to go too much into this one, but because it's mostly a story about Google and Apple like refusing to comment on this. But if you want to check it out, the fact that this happened was pretty wild, and I see this sort of app becoming a bigger problem in the future as people contribute data to something that's kind of dubious as to what it's for. Okay, so this is something I haven't driven into too much, but it was all over security news for the beginning of the week. This was a flaw in the design of transportation layer security, and it was called the Alpaca attack. So if you want to check it out, there's a thread on it on my Twitter. There's also going to be a presentation at Black Hat 2021, which I'm probably going to check out. And yeah, it's just interesting to note that these protocols do still experience attacks in the way that they're designed. This is an overview of the attack. And I should read this further before I try to give an overview. But just be aware that alpaca-attack.com is the place to learn more about this attack, and it's going to be presented at Black Hat. So we'll just
And look how cute it is.
and look how cute it is. Any attack that's like novel enough for the person to come up with like a kind of, it's not really cross-eyed, it's more like a wall-eyed alpaca logo, like there you go. It's got some branding. It's got some some memorability. But yeah, it looks like We evaluated the real world attack surface of web browsers and why they deployed email servers and lab experiments and found that 1.4 million servers are generally vulnerable to cross-protocol attacks. So yeah, that's a good amount of different devices. So yeah, check it out. All right. We tried to do a stream on hackers reacting to hacking clips, and we found out that YouTube doesn't believe in fair use when it comes to streaming, or at the very least, its algorithm will decide to shut down your stream and then re-enable it when you stop playing copyrighted material, which in a clip show where we were using fair use clips that were already hosted elsewhere on YouTube really messed things up. So we had to switch everybody over to Twitch, which admittedly is fine. And, if you haven't seen our Twitch, then here it is. This is our Twitch. Oh, we're on it right now. Hi.
It's us. Oh my gosh.
It's us. Yeah, so if our stream ever gets taken down on YouTube, we also have Twitch and Periscope and I think LinkedIn and sometimes we have all that stuff. So we managed to get away with doing it.
Watch us on LinkedIn.
Yeah, watch us on LinkedIn, our most popular platform.
Greetings go out to all our LinkedIn viewers.
Hey, we have LinkedIn viewers. They like it.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
This doesn't make it better, though.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I forget that we broadcast on the Varonis LinkedIn page, which has like 20,000 followers or something. So maybe even more. I don't know. So,
crazy.
Yeah.
Then I shouldn't talk
stuff
about
Yeah, exactly. But we did find that like YouTube is pretty serious about this sort of stuff, and we got a content strike about it. We managed to reverse that, but apparently Germany, as well as a couple other countries, have stronger laws about copyright, like playing copyrighted material. So even though we're now in the clear in like all of the world except for like 3 countries, we now have an additional, apparently much more difficult content appeal we need to do. So Stefan, can you not do like a clip show in where you like use like a 20-second clip of something while you're talking over it in Germany? Would that like violate copyright law?
Copyright law here is complicated. I would say yes, you can, but there are stronger regulations, and YouTube is more playing, on the safe side. And now we are looking to have the whole upload filter EU directive implemented very soon. So things will probably get worse.
Oof.
But not just for Germany, but for the entire EU.
Well, it was a horrible experience. And the only thing that heartens me to know is that I'm not the only one that's struggling with it. Okay, so let me read. There we go. So Mike Bizzell is the author of many excellent books on OSINT investigations, and he also does a really good podcast, which I love listening to whenever I have the time. And a lot of people were recommending that he goes on YouTube for like just better closed captioning and interactivity and the ability for other people to find the podcast. So he tried, and he uploaded a video that was critical of Google's privacy policies. I mean, basically this podcast says how you can abuse different databases on the internet to learn information. Not really abuse, but creatively use different services on the internet to learn information, such as maybe like Google profiles of some sort. And it seems like Google didn't like that. He is now banned from uploading any content. And yeah, he just cannot access, because of a perceived violation of the Google terms of service, he no longer can upload stuff on his Google account. So I find that, we're live on YouTube right now. And I've built one channel on YouTube from scratch and participate in another with a tremendous amount of subscribers. And we know that YouTube is a very difficult platform to publish on sometimes. Like if you are doing anything that is aside from entertainment, they really, especially if it's security related, have very little knowledge about what is like helping the community and trying to be a resource and what kind of stuff is just generally malicious. So hopefully we don't get our stream taken down for me saying that, but like it's really funny how we have had to fight a lot to produce educational content for you guys on YouTube, and seeing other creators that are peripheral to I mean, Mike is talking about OSINT stuff. He's not even talking about like hacking or security related stuff. So the fact that his content, and he's also like very, very well known. He's one of the like preeminent like trainers in OSINT. So having him just like, they just rip his stuff out because they're like, this guy sucks. It's like, this is one of the best experts on this subject, who's like bringing his knowledge for free to people, and you are actively making it difficult and terrible for him to talk about things like flaws in your own product. Like, you can try to silence the conversation, but it's just going to move to other places. And frankly, like, this sort of stuff is what a lot of content creators complain about. And that's the reason why, like, as much as I hate TikTok for other reasons, we cut up our episodes and release them on TikTok too, because, like, you know, sometimes it's easier to do that than it is on YouTube, which is pretty sad. So the last thing we'll go into is there's a Webkit bug that appears to be a 0-day on iOS 14.6. So this I just saw last night. So if you're interested in developing 0 days, this looks like something that is currently currently being patched, and probably has not been patched yet because of the age of this tweet here. So yeah, that's pretty spooky. If you have an iOS device, make sure to keep it updated. And this is a one-click exploit, so just be, you know, cautious, because you could be one click away from exploiting your device from this particular WebKit bug. And that's it. That's all we have for today. So I'm going to go over to the Restream chat, see if we have any questions we might be able to answer in the brief little time we have. But yeah, Stefan, did you feel like maybe giving a little demonstration in the couple of minutes we have of the future of the deauthor?
Sure. How much should I go into it?
I would maybe just show connecting a device and running like the help screen or the chicken screen.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Then switch to my screen.
Yep, we're there.
And this is a project I'm working on, and it's basically supposed to make accessing our tools easier. So you would just go to a website. This is currently running locally, but you would just go to a website, and now I can connect. I select a project. Right now it's only for the deauthor v3, but future projects could be implemented. And then you won't see this, I'm afraid, but basically when I click select, you get a pop-up like you get when you share your screen, your camera, your microphone through other web applications. But instead of selecting your camera or whatever, you can select a serial port. And so I can select the of Andromeda I have connected here. And here I have a terminal. And let's type help here. You have
it's all colored
commands.
As well.
Yeah, or the chicken. Let's see.
Yes.
Ta-da. And that's basically the serial terminal of the deauthor v3 we showed in other live streams and videos, but accessible through the browser, so you don't even need to install anything. But that being said, this is all early stage development, but I think it looks pretty cool already, and I wanted to give a bit of a teaser, I guess. Because there are a lot of ideas we had just talking about this for a couple of minutes before the stream already, because this has potential.
Now, I love this too, because I believe you and I were talking a long time about different interfaces, and one that I mentioned was the MicroPython interface. Like, MicroPython allows you to connect to it and have a browser or like a website that you go to that then connects to the MicroPython device and allows you to do like terminal stuff. And like, it's just one way of making it so that your users can either access it through a web page or through like a server that they host themselves without needing to really install anything, or at least very much. This idea I love, because instead of having to like install Rust on your computer, plug it in, find the serial port, you literally just go to a website, plug in your device, and then press start. And you can start doing all the stuff that you would normally need to install an additional component. So this is really cool. I love that this has turned into a project that has such great support. And it's also based on some cool technology that browsers are implementing nowadays, which, you know, we probably don't have time to go into on this stream. But hopefully we'll be able to do a separate stream on getting started. And Stefan are also talking about great community integrations, like maybe even having scripts that other people make accessible here. So maybe you guys can like add a script if you really want to like share it or have other people modify it, and then have a little marketplace place or a little spot where people put their scripts that you can try out on the Andromeda Deauthor. I have some scripts myself to automatically broadcast a bunch of really common restaurant, hotel, and coffee shop Wi-Fi networks. So if other people wanted to contribute their own scripts, I imagine it would be really cool to see what kinds of community ideas pop up. So, one question is, what is this project called? This is, Stefan, if you want to explain.
So the working title right now is Navigator, or Spacehoon Navigator. Yeah, because it's kind of like a command center-ish, kind of guides you through using the tools.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I think it's such a cool idea based on having to teach many people how to either connect to a serial port over screen or whatever, or install Hunator on some weird operating system I didn't anticipate having to install it on. I mean, we did a really good job with it, but I think that this nails all the same things while making it super beginner friendly and easy to get started with. So hopefully that will be working in the future and we'll be able to do another live stream on it. But if you guys have ideas for this project, feel free to chime in. We kind of wanted to show it off to you guys to get some initial impressions, see if you guys think it's useful, and also if there's some other ideas like, having a place for other people to share scripts or making it more useful or interactive for you, then let us know, because we're still in the early stages and Stefan has plenty of time to implement ideas or otherwise adapt it a bit. So yeah, love to hear you guys' ideas, and thank you for hanging out with us today, Stefan. It's really cool to see what kind of projects are coming up next.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the spotlight, I suppose. This was a fun stream.
Yeah, cool. Well, all right, you guys, if you had a question that didn't get answered in the chat today, you can always either leave it on the YouTube video that's going to be on the Security Forward channel, and we will answer it during our next Wednesday Q&A. Or, of course, you can just show up on the Wednesday Q&A and ask us yourselves. Hopefully we have some more topics to cover next time. I was gonna say like what we're gonna cover next time, but I'm still trying to do that half handshake thing. It's terrible. We tried to do a live stream on extracting handshakes from smartphones, so you can like find out what the password was to the network they connected to, even if you're not near that network, and it just didn't work for no reason. So we're gonna try to get you guys that stream, but I need my anger level to calm down a little bit because I definitely punched a computer that day after like 45 minutes of it not working. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good weekend. Stefan, thanks for joining us again, and yeah, see ya.